Welcome everyone to this next keynote. So the subject of today is going to be innovation and design in the new normal. I'm John Metselaar. Hello, nice to meet all of you. And I want to introduce, what's more important, Roberto Verganti, who is a professor of leadership and innovation at the Stockholm School of Economics, House of Innovation, where he's the director of the Garden, which is the Center of Design and Leadership. He's also the faculty of the Harvard Business School, where he's going to teach this fall, and he's going to teach integrated design. And he is co-founder of the Lead-In Lab, the Laboratory of Leadership, Design, and Innovation at the School of Management of the Politecnico of Milano. And then last, which is also a pretty cool job, he serves on the advisory board of the European Innovation Council at the European Commission. As if that's not enough, he found the time to write a few books. The most recent one was Overcrowded, Designing Meaningful Products in a World Awash with Ideas, where it provides tangible processes and methods to create breakthrough transformations. And before that, he wrote Design-Driven Innovation, Changing the Rules of Competition by Radically Innovating What Things Mean. And that was selected by Business Week as one of the best design and innovation books. Then on top, go on, he has written more than 150 articles, and he is an executive advisor in demand because he's worked at companies from Ferrari to Ducati to Procter & Gamble, which is where we first met, Gucci, Samsung, 3M, you name them. Other companies that you have not advised is my question, Roberto. And with that, Roberto, I'm so thrilled to be able to introduce you. It's an honor, and I wish you a wonderful 20 minutes of enlightening the audience. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, John. Can I hire you for my next speeches for the next 20 years? Because you made a fantastic introduction.
Not for 20 years, but maybe for a few times. With pleasure.
So, no, thank you very much. And thank to ISPIM for the invitation. I will go straight to the point because the time is very limited. So the reflection is a reflection that it came to me naturally when everything started to be locked down. I'm broadcasting from a city called Brescia in Italy in this moment, which is used to be when things went bad in Italy, the second most dramatic province in Italy in terms of the epidemic. So it's a very things were quite bad. Now things are better, so you can see I'm outside, and so I started to reflect, what are the implications for what we do in terms of innovation and design, and in terms of implication, the question on question that everyone has, it's how business innovation will be in the new normal, and by the new normal, I mean, of course, not yesterday. Many things that happened yesterday were not happening anymore. Not now, which is more or less lock on unlock, depending on the countries, but it's tomorrow. By tomorrow, let's say from January 2021, for the next 5-6 years, things will not be the same, at least for a while. Not only because maybe the virus will be around, but especially because I think the fears that have been with us in this period will stay with us for a long time. So how innovation and design will be in this new normal? And we have been seeing around a lot of studies, experts, think tanks, trying to depict a scenario of the future and how this future will look like. But if we really want to be totally honest, it is very difficult. We need to admit that no one really knows how things will be. No one really knows because the change that we are facing in this moment is a change that is dramatic. In terms of speed and rapidity, it's extremely fast. Everyone says, at least everyone agreed that COVID has been an accelerator of phenomena, an extreme accelerator. The changes among us, it means that the magnitude of the changes is dramatic. It's global, it touches everyone, and is diversified because different countries have different situations and different paths. So the reality is that it's such an unprecedented change, not even Second World War was like this, that in reality no one knows. Just to bring a couple of data, what you see here is a diagram that says the number of weekly jobless claims in the US, okay? Now this is like 60 million because I took this in mid-March. We know that they touched the 30-40 millions in terms of jobless claim, but it was 6-7 millions per week in just a few weeks. Not even during the financial recession in 2008, 2009, this happened so rapidly. So it's such a rapid change that no one ever seen before. So how can we know what will happen later? Of course, no one knows what will happen later. It's impossible. And if someone tells you that they know, they simply lie. So there is a fantastic book by Amy Edmondson at Harvard Business School called The Fearless. I read last year, which I really suggest you to read. And Amy says one of the most dangerous things that the leader can do is to pretend to know. Because when you know, first you do a lot of mistakes, but even worse, even others around you feel that you know, so they step back. I mean, this guy knows everything, so they step back and you lose trust. So the best thing, the first important, most important thing to do now in this moment is to accept that we don't know and to embrace the fact that we don't know. Because in the moment in which we embrace that we don't know, then we start to be curious and we start to want to learn. That's exactly what we need. Okay, I don't know, but I can learn. I'm curious to learn. And in the moment in which we admit that we don't know, then we also build trust with people around us, because no one will ever trust us if we pretend to know. And finally, in the moment in which we embrace that we don't know and we communicate this to the others, then others say, okay, if this guy don't know, maybe I can contribute. Because it's exactly in the moment in which he says that he knows, I step back. But if he doesn't know, I'm important here. I can be part of the engagement and the creativity. So the first thing is, don't pretend to know. We really don't know. No worries. No one else knows. You're not the only one who don't know. No one knows around this. So if we don't know, what should we do? We need to learn. And what we need to learn, and we need to learn in a special way. We need to learn on the fly. What does it mean, on the fly? It means that traditionally there are, let's say, 4 possible ways to learn in innovation. And the first dimension in which we can classify the ways to learn is learning from the past, from experience, or learning from the future, so from experiments and experimentation. That's one way to classify learning. Another way to classify learning is, should I learn by myself? I try and I learn. Or should I share some learning with others? So I can learn alone, I try, I do experiment, or can leverage the learning with others and collaborate. So what kind of learning do we need in this moment to be successful in innovation and design? Well, definitely, as I said before, the kind of change that we have in front of us is so dramatic that learning by expertise from experience doesn't really work. Everything we know from the past doesn't help us to see what will happen in the future, because nothing like this ever happened before. So the past doesn't help. Okay. Learning by expertise works very well when things are quite linear and continuous. Okay, so we need to experiment. But if we move to the level of experimentation, then we have 2 possibilities: compete or collaborate. And in the past 20 years in innovation, we have been celebrating learning by experimentation through competition as a way to compete with the others. Those who learn better are those who compete better. Okay, so the idea around learn by trying, or the classic mantra of fail often to succeed sooner, which is a master of design thinking, or the lean startup, which is all built about experimentation and rotating and so on. So the idea is that we have different players out there. These different players try different ideas without sharing information, because information is exactly this. Try to learn is the way you build your success. There's no sharing. We compete on data. Our data are our data. Actually, in the last 20 years, we have been saying one of the myths was that data are the core competition. So you compete on data, and you want to disrupt competitors. So the winner is the one that disrupts the others. Okay, it's a zero-sum game. One winner and many losers. Okay. Well, does it work? It doesn't really work in our case. Because if we try to learn by ourselves, it will take ages between we get to any kind of solution. Imagine, let's make a very simple example. Imagine we are a doctor, okay, in front of COVID. There is this new virus coming. A doctor tried to learn by itself how to treat the virus. Okay, I try one treatment and then a patient dies, and then another patient dies. And maybe in 3-4 years, I will understand what is the best strategy to treat COVID. But of course, if you're a clever doctor, you try to learn from the others. what other people is doing around the world, what happened to China, what happened to my colleagues in my hospital. So of course you learn by collaborating with others. So this kind of way of learning is good when things are fast, but not when things are so rapid. It works when you want to win against the others. But in this moment, we need to build a new market, not to win competition. The problem, there's no market there. So how can we do? In this case, we definitely need to learn by sharing. What does it mean to learn by sharing? It means that different players, different companies have different ideas. It doesn't mean to share the same idea. Different players have different ideas, but they share the learning. Okay? Why? Why they share the learning? Because this way, if I try an idea and I know that someone else has already been trying this, I'm not losing time to try a path that doesn't work. So we share resources, we accelerate dramatically the speed of learning, and therefore the entire community grows and the entire market grows. Then of course, someone will win, someone will win more, someone will win less, but we all win. Okay, let's make some examples just to make knows what's happening. This is what you see here is Post-Era. Post-Era is a startup in the UK and California. There's a company using machine learning to make analysis of drugs. And when COVID came out, they simply put up and say, why they work in the space of antiviral medicine. So it's not the vaccine, it's how you treat COVID. Okay. So they say to treat COVID, you need some molecules that basically they connect to ACE transmitters so that the protein doesn't replicate itself too much. So instead of trying all the trained molecules, we need to help companies to make different experiments and share the learning. So what they did, they put up a website where all companies are trying new molecules. They say, okay, we are trying this molecule. Okay, so you see here, there's a tweet saying we had over 3,600 molecules submitted and only 32 duplicates, which means these companies are not losing time on replicating experiments that have already been done. They are sharing information. Different trajectories, 360,600 trajectories, but sharing the results. You can imagine the speed of learning you can have in this case. Another example coming to things that are not connected to COVID. A few weeks ago, Microsoft announced that they will support open data movements. Okay, what is open data? It's like open source. Open source is the sharing of codes. Open data is the sharing of data. So what they say, okay, we don't believe in a society in which data are fully proprietary. We believe in a society in which companies share data. By sharing data, everyone can learn and make experiment by leveraging on the data of each other. Different experiment, same data. And this is a final example. Airbus a few years ago launched an application and a program called Skywise. Skywise is a platform that enables different airlines to share data and connect to Airbus so they can have better predictive maintenance. And in this moment, this platform is used to help airlines to park their airplanes around the different airports in a better way. You can imagine how many airplanes are in this moment are parked around the world, and they need to track it around. So they use data from different competing airlines to help everyone to manage their business better. So what does it mean this? So this is the kind of learning we need in this moment, which really challenges two myths of the past. First of all, the myth of fail often to succeed sooner. And the point is that it's not you who has to fail. And you need to leverage on the failures of the other. It doesn't make any sense to fail yourself because it will take so long to fail before you learn that it doesn't really make sense. You need to learn from the failures of the others. Second, the myth of data competition. Of course, in this case, you need to share it. And third, the myth of disruption. You don't win because you disrupt competitors. You win because you help the entire community to grow. So it's what is called, like in the prisoner dilemma, we all win. And if we all win, it's much more powerful than having one winner and several losers. Also because even the winner will win less than a situation in which everyone cooperates. Just to make a note, in the last diagram, there is the classic co-making or consortia. I'm not talking about consortia. Consortia share their learning, but you also have one single strategy. They all move in the same direction. In this case, instead I say, ideas are different, the data are shared. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we do this? First of all, first to let people cooperate and move into cooperation, need to take out fears. Again, Amy Edmondson showed how fears is the first killer of learning. The more you leverage the fears people, the more people is of course more focused on themselves and compete instead of sharing. So the debate that has been characterizing our news in the last period, in which there was a kind of trade-off between health and wealth, doesn't really work, because it's not a point of making a balance, a trade-off between health and wealth. It really doesn't make any sense, because both health and wealth scare people. The point is not to save life or to save the economy. People don't live. These are just means to achieve an higher purpose, an higher meaning. So what we need to do in this moment is to say, of course, we need to save life and we need to save the economy and to save jobs in our companies. But companies don't exist because they want to survive. That is just the mean. Companies exist because they have a purpose, because they produce something, they make products, they create value. Survival is not the mission of the company. It's making something meaningful that is the mission of the company. So we need to move away from a focus on health and wealth, because this is the best way to prevent people to cooperate. We are here, we want to create value, not to save life and the economy. That's just a must-have. It's a mean. It's not the end. It's not the purpose. And there are several stories and books that talk about the power of doing this, and why when you want to bring an organization together, you need to do this to reinforce this. This is a beautiful book by Viktor Frankl, talk about the meaning of things, and explain when he was into the Auschwitz, the Nazi camp, how people who were focused on surviving were just miserable. Those who made through the experience better was those who were focusing on the search for meaning. So what you need to do is, first of all, refocus on meaning. So what is the meaning of our organization and why we are here? And then, of course, you need to do it well, which means point to the big cake. Okay, so how do you stimulate people to cooperate? Don't aim for the bigger share of a smaller pie. Aim for the bigger pie. Even if the share is not so big, doesn't matter. This is the moment in which we need to be the bigger pie. Okay, so here in this case is not those who disrupt the other, but those who catalyze the energy. And of course, do it right. Do it right simply means try to use a right process to get there, and oh, sorry, I was too slow, too fast. Try to do it well, and don't necessarily need to share ideas with your partners. You can, with your competitors, you can simply share ideas with other players around your industry. For example, if you're doing tracks, you can cooperate with the cities, you can cooperate with companies in the telecommunication industry. There's a lot of players around you in your ecosystem where you can share data. Do it right, don't emulate, try different experiences, and of course, make experiment the right way, make hypothesis and then test it. So we have been trying to do this several times, an experimental way to learning by sharing in the last few years, working with several organizations. And there is a chapter in my latest book, which is Overcrowding, which you can see the methodology that you can use, what I call a classic interpreter lab, a methodology you can use to practice this learning by sharing. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Roberto. Thank you for that very compelling talk here. And we have one really good question by Ajit Paul, who says, how do we help reimagine a problem or the possibilities? How do we step back and fall in love with the problem, I always say, to get to those powerful new solutions? Do you have any specific tools, handles you can offer?
It's a very, very good question. Actually, with the colleague at Stockholm in this moment, with Mattia Bianchi, we are exploring exactly this. How do you reframe a problem, which is one of the most difficult things ever. There are basically two ways to reframe problems. It's not just a matter of creativity. the first thing is make sense of a changing environment. It's not that you don't see the problem and finally you see it, but you need to make sense of things that are changing around. In this sense, collaborating with others is very important because you can borrow their glasses by participating to a meeting like this one in ISPIM, or by talking to your from different perspectives. You can see things that you never see. So that's the reason why collaboration with others is very important. They are not in your same industry, but they're a little bit on the side that can help you see things you will never see. The second way is to start from your own capability. That's the reason why I connected to purpose, to decide where you want to go. There is an emotional and intent in where you want to go. So decide first where you want to go in terms of your own attention, and then you can start seeing things you will never see.
Yeah, I mean, you learn something from every conversation if you ask the right questions and have an open mind. And so that's nicely put. Excellent question as well by Helmi Ben Rajep, excuse me if I pronounce it not properly. She says, okay, that's all. I mean, let me paraphrase. That's all fine what you're just saying, okay? And that sounds very high end and ambitious. But the companies are going to go and get their cash flow back when they come back, and so they will go and want to go and do that at the expense of competition if necessary. So how do you rhyme all this? What do you think leaders should be doing?
Yeah. Helmi has a very good question there. Unfortunately, this is a moment in which talking about cooperation is not easy, because the more people is scared, and as you say, having cash flow, and so the more you focus on this, the more you tend to be greedy, of course. I mean, you enter into survival mode. That's, in reality, is a very vicious circle. The more you enter into survival mode, the more you struggle to survive. So the best way is to really, that's the reason why I talk about refocusing on meaning. Remember that there's no point to surviving, and there's no way to survive if we don't know where to go. So really the focus is to say why we are here, what is the mission of our companies, and what do we really want to achieve. Then cash will come back. So
leaders need to learn to perform and transform, I like to say, right? Yeah. Focus on indeed, I mean, becoming
especially if you're a leader, the more you focus on the scary thing, the more you paralyze your company instead of taking out the energies.
Exactly. Excellent. Now, you mentioned meaning, right? As where it all needs to start. Excellent. And so Joshua is hitting that point right on when he says, okay, so searching for meaning, that makes sense. But how do we begin to see what's relevant for us? Where do we go? How do we define what really is the meaning of our corporation? Any perspective from your experiences?
It is a very, very good question. I mean, I'm sure that whichever company, organization you are, you ask people what is meaningful. That's the experience we have, because we have been doing a lot of projects. There are many different perspectives. And doing this moment, a project with the company you know well, John. And of course, within an organization, there is some shared understanding of where to go, apparently. But if you dig a little deeper, then you discover that people in reality see the future in different ways. And these differences are exactly the starting point. By leveraging the little difference in the nuance between what I see and what you see, you can go deeper and see things that alone, ourselves, we cannot see.
Well said. Well said. Collaboration is huge. Which, by the way, gets to the next question. Guys, these are really good questions, and they flow nicely as well. Thank you. Jara Pasquale from the Netherlands says, how to help those leaders and academics move from fear to collaboration? From fear of collaboration to be curious to want to collaborate for innovation.
Well, I can talk about academics being one part, but also for leader. I think that what Amy Edmondson says is fantastic. I really like that book when he said the first thing is to admit that you don't know. And unfortunately, we have been training academic and leaders to be exactly the opposite. They are supposed to know. So the first thing is, I'm an academic. Maybe my job as an academic is not to know, but to be curious to know. It's curiosity, my job. It's not knowledge, because knowledge disappears in a second. So the first step in that, embracing that you don't know, I think is the real first thing.
I can tell you from a business leader perspective, the same thing is true. You got to shed that ego. But it's really hard. And so Amy Edmondson indeed is real inspiration. She also coins this notion of psychological safety, right?
Yeah.
To bring psychological safety to the organization. So
it's unbelievable how you bring safety. The more you say I don't know, the more people feel safe. It doesn't feel they feel scared when you say that you know, because no one believes you.
Absolutely, well said. Okay, where are we now? How to help? There was Ajit already had you. Sorry, I'm going to skip you. We give Elmi, we already have, the same people. Okay, back to Ajit. How do we help reimagine? Oh no, sorry, I was all the way going back. Now I understand why the same names were there. What internal organizational, Giovanna says, what internal organizational habits and abilities are important to collaborate and co-create? What do you need to work at the organizational level?
One of the things that we discussed, and I discussed in this book you see there, is the capability of critical reflection. In the last 20 years, we have been talking a lot about creativity, brainstorming, ideation. There is a much deeper level of creativity that is instead the capability to challenge each other in a good way. I mean, how do you learn? How do you co-create better and deeper when you really acknowledge that the other person is saying something different? And it's not my ideas against yours, who is best, but hold on a second. If you see something different, either you're totally stupid, but I don't know why I'm the only one on earth that is right, and God gave me this fantastic gift, or maybe simply you see things that I don't see. So why you see things that I don't see? So the capability of critical reflection, which means reflect about yourself, not criticize others, but reflecting critically on why I don't see what the others see, is the first ingredient.
Yeah, and psychological safety, again, unleashes that as well, right? It makes people comfortable with that friction where 1 + 1 becomes 3 instead of 1.5. Excellent, thank you. I think these are good answers. Let me see here. Tanya Meristo is asking, what do you think, how will the time horizon, short-term versus beyond, have an influence on the way the companies are seeking new opportunities and using their creativity?
Yeah, definitely is a very good point. Unfortunately, short-term is like fear. It pulls you down to the reaction. I think that what is happening in this moment is that many companies are starting to realize that focusing too much on the short-term, even if the change is dramatic, it doesn't really work for a very simple reason, because the short-term changes so rapidly nowadays, there's no short-term. I mean, focusing on the short-term in this moment is the most stupid things ever, because we just get crazy. In the moment which we finally act, the short-term is already the past. So there is only long-term, which is very fast anyway, but there is only long-term in this moment.
Yeah, there is no there's just term, I guess. No short-term, no long-term, there's just term.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful engaging with you, and thanks for the answers. The presentation was great, but the answers also were nicely short. Pleasure working with you. Hope to see you again. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.